Yo, what is up guys, Delboy here, aka Blue Collar Sports TV. Hopefully you guys are doing well. If you're new here, smash that like, hit subscribe, all of that good stuff. So Vergil Ortiz Jr. passes the biggest test of his career by stopping Maurice in the 7th round. First and foremost, I have to say, for as long as this fight lasted, it was extremely fun. While Vergil Ortiz was in control throughout for the most part, there was enough coming back that it was competitive, and yeah, some good exchanges, some hard punches landed by both guys. Very entertaining fight, in all fairness. So yeah, credit to both guys. But you know, the fight started out with Vergil Ortiz being the aggressor, as we kind of expected. He was coming forwards behind a nice tight high guard, he was blocking the straight punches of Maurice, and he was able to apply effective pressure. He was finding himself on the inside, he would throw a ramrod jab to get on the inside, which was rocking the head back of Maurice, and also he was double jabbing his way on the inside as well, and when he got to the inside he was landing some good hooks to the body, short right hands to the head, and Vergil Ortiz certainly started this fight with purpose. Maurice, to his credit though, he was having his own moments, landing some good left hooks in the exchanges, some nice short overhand rights as well. He was fighting fire with Vergil Ortiz Jr. very early on in this fight, and while he was landing shots, he wasn't landing as much as Vergil Ortiz Jr., and those shots from Maurice didn't seem as effective, but he was getting his own work done, making a fight of it. Rounds 2 and 3 were very similar, you know, Maurice basically giving up his height and reach, trading at mid-range, even trading on the inside, and it was just Vergil Ortiz who was more effective up close. Maurice was actually throwing a similar amount of shots to Vergil Ortiz from what I was seeing, but Vergil Ortiz's defense was much better. He had a nice tight guard, he was rolling with shots, whereas Maurice was getting caught up flush a lot more than Vergil Ortiz. So after 3 rounds, I had Maurice 3 rounds down, and in my opinion, they were clear rounds to score. To Maurice credit though, in round 4, he came back quite strongly, had his best round of the fight so far. He was actually keeping it on the outside and dictating the real estate. He was popping the jab, some of those jabs were getting through the guard of Vergil Ortiz Jr. Vergil Ortiz's guard in round 4 kind of loosened up a bit, and that allowed, you know, Hooker to pop that jab and throw right hands from the outside, and he was basically fighting a sniper style from the outside in round 4, and he was landing some good shots. He was catching Vergil Ortiz, kind of committing from too far out, and he would catch him with the right hands. So yeah, round 4, Maurice had a pretty good round, and I felt he'd done the better work in round 4, and I gave him that round. But after round 4, Vergil Ortiz Jr. basically resumed his game plan, and once again he found himself on the inside at mid-range, throwing extremely effective shots. And in round 5 you could tell that the bodywork of Vergil Ortiz Jr. was starting to have its effect, landing hard body shots throughout round 5, and you could tell that they was getting to Maurice. Again, Maurice was fighting valiantly, landing some good left hooks here and there, some nice overhand rights, but Vergil Ortiz really just overwhelmed him in round 5. And in round 5 as well, it looked like Maurice was hurt to the body. In fact, I believe he said to his corner he couldn't breathe when he got caught towards the end of that round to the body. So round 5 really was the beginning of the end for Maurice. Round 6, again, relentless pressure from Vergil Ortiz, you know, tucking up behind the high guard, double jabbing his way in and really working. And he caught Maurice, I believe, with an uppercut overhand right combination, and the overhand right dropped Maurice. I don't think it was actually the headshots that hurt Hooker in that sequence. I think Hooker was hurt earlier by a body shot, and the headshots basically just persuaded him to go down. But yeah, round 6, dominant round by Vergil Ortiz Jr. And at this stage, it looked like Maurice needed a miracle, quite frankly. And round 7 was where this fight ended. Basically, from what I saw, Maurice blew his hand out, broke his hand or done something to his hands. The pain was too much, he took a knee, and that was it, basically. So yeah, Vergil Ortiz Jr. won the fight by a 7th round stoppage. And yeah, good fight for him. He took some shots back, some hard shots, took them well. He won the fight. So good test for Vergil Ortiz Jr. and more good matchmaking in his career. I think he's been matched extremely well so far. You know, he's fought guys like Mauricio Herrera, who's a cagey veteran, Brad Solomon, who's very awkward, Antonio Orozco, a good pressure fighter, a lanky puncher in Maurice Hooker. I think he's been matched really well so far in his career, and this was another one of those occasions where the matchmaking was spot on. So credit to Golden Boy in the way they are developing Vergil Ortiz Jr. But it's now the time to let this guy off the leash. He's saying he wants everybody. He's talking about Terence Crawford. I say, why not? You know, he's certainly capable. He's not a prospect anymore, he's a contender. And he's very dangerous. He brings a lot of pressure to the table, power in both hands, solid defense, you know. He's a very good fighter. So for me, listen, I say make Crawford versus Vergil Ortiz Jr. next. If Terence Crawford can't get that fight with Errol Spence Jr., then to me that fight with Vergil Ortiz Jr. makes a lot of sense. I think that's a great fight for Terence Crawford and a great fight for Vergil Ortiz. So, listen, I would like to see that fight next, personally. I say why not. It might be a bit too early, but it's worth taking the risk. That's what separates the men from the boys, right? So, yeah, congrats to Vergil Ortiz Jr. Good performance. Got caught a few times, you know. Maurice Hooker gave him some resistance, as we was expecting, but Vergil Ortiz got through it, and he ended up stopping him. So, good performance. And as for Maurice Hooker, hopefully that injury is not too bad. He's certainly a fun fighter, and he's a good test for any up-and-coming welterweight, and you can match him with certain guys that would make for really good fights at the mid-level in the welterweight division. So, yeah, I wouldn't mind seeing Maurice Hooker again also. But yeah, congrats to both guys. They put on a good show, but Vergil Ortiz Jr., just the better fighter in there. And yeah, share your thoughts below. What did you make of this fight? Were you impressed with Vergil Ortiz Jr., or do you believe there's still a lot to work on before he fights the elite guys at 147? I personally believe he's ready. I'm at the stage now where I just want to see how good this guy is. I do believe he's very good. I think he's a genuine contender now, and a genuine threat to anybody in the welterweight division. He's a very good fighter, a very fun fighter as well, I might add. And listen, the Crawford fight, very hard fight, don't get me wrong, but is it totally unwinnable? I wouldn't say so. I mean, I saw Kavalauskas, who's quite slow and methodical. He gave Terence Crawford a hard fight and put him down. It wasn't counted, but Terence Crawford got dropped that night. Vergil Ortiz is a much better fighter than Kavalauskas. Much better combination puncher, better offense, better defense, better counter puncher, faster, stronger, hits harder. He's better than Kavalauskas in pretty much every area. And we saw what Kavalauskas did in that fight. So while it's a hard fight, I don't think it's unwinnable for Vergil Ortiz Jr. Maybe I'm drinking the Kool-Aid, but I really like this kid. But anyway, share your thoughts below. Beanie Guy Del Boy. Peace.